it's a constant search for not just what is sustainable, but what makes this place better, what makes the ground better, and the people and the animals and the ranching industry in this community.
So winter grazing basically is grazing the grass when it is dormant. So typically during the winter season or late fall when the grass is dormant. Continuous grazing, we would consider probably cattle to be grazing that all during the growing season when it's actively growing.
This is Sieben Livestock Company, which is located outside of Cascade, Montana in the west central part of the state. So to put our year in perspective, we calve starting the end of May, and we'll be calving through majority of June and into the first part of July. And these last few years we've been weaning in that November time frame, kind of more of an early weaning, and get the calves off the cow and on a high nutritional plane, and then the cows back out onto pasture and hopefully gaining body condition, because their body condition starts to drop usually in October, early November, and then we try and put it back on prior to the winter. And then historically we've run all of our calves over the winter on the ranch and then run them as long yearlings through the summer. And meanwhile the cows are post-weaning. Starting about December 15th, we get onto this daily move program, and we've figured a few things out, and we've actually been able to, thanks to the type of grass species that we have with these native cool season perennials that hold their green through the winter and have a higher protein content through the winter, and also with getting our grazing program dialed in of when we need to move them, how we move them. We've been able to increase their body condition through the winter from December to April 2 of the last 3 years, and we'll see what we can do this year, and that's without supplement. And that's what's so amazing. So we've kind of taken that area of our ranch and the area of our ranch production, which was the most limiting factor, which is the winter, and we've turned that into our unfair advantage. So the reason we started grazing this way was we really tried to move away from feeding hay, and we've been really pretty successful at doing that with this group. Probably the last 10 years, 15 years, the average amount of hay fed to these cows was 150 pounds per head to get them through the winter. But what we've done is, since we've changed our calving date and our calves are younger and we're holding them over through the winter, then all of our hay savings that's not going to these cows has just shifted and gone to our calves. So technically we're not feeding much less hay, but I'd argue it's a better use of hay, because not only are we still growing a fetus, but we're also growing out a calf for a competitive cost of gain.
So the Sieben Ranch, I think, is unique in that they are doing some pretty high stock density grazing in the winter, which is not necessarily typical because it's cold in the Great Falls area where they're at. But they are using roughly 1,000 head, and they are moving every day. And so a lot of people would say, well, only people that have 20 or 40 head can do something like that. But I think the unique thing about Sieben Ranch is they're doing it with 1,000 head in areas that get a lot of snow with a single wire electric fence. And they are able to make some drastic changes in their vegetation and their soils with this grazing system.
For us, it works best to usually move them once a day. Sometimes it's more than that, sometimes it's less, but on average, we're moving them once a day. The ground that they're grazing basically only gets grazed for 1 day of the year. And so it's rested and stockpiled for the remainder of the year. When you have 1,000 cows on 8 acres for 1 day of the year, that has a tremendous amount of impact and effect and recovery, and that's where you really start to see some neat things happen.
I'm out here every day, so I might as well move them daily, you know? So, I mean, it's just something that's ingrained in me to be with these cows every day. I feel like I'm impacting that ground, this environment on a daily basis, and I can do it shorter so I don't have a negative impact on the ground. I have a positive impact on the ground by doing it quicker and getting off the ground quicker.
What I really noticed was the livestock behavior. They're in, you know, a small paddock with 1,000 head, and they are eating, right? Because they know if they don't eat it, their sister is going to eat it. And so what that does is it creates a competition where they're eating very uniformly, and they're not being able to choose what species they like compared to what they don't like. So when you look at the pasture, it's really uniformly grazed. Then when they moved the cows, they just, you know, went right into the next pasture, not necessarily running, just went. And then as soon as they get into that next pasture, they are having their head down eating.
First off, we pay a lot more attention to their mental well-being and their emotional well-being. At the end of the day, if our cow's not grazing when she should be, then we're losing fat and we're losing money. But what we've seen, we've been able to cultivate this competitive instinct to where we're able to get them to graze for longer periods of the day than they otherwise would, and that's how we affect their body condition.
I like changing the environment that we live in. I'm improving it. The cows are improving it daily. I truly value that aspect of the winter grazing, because you can see in the springtime we've changed what we're doing here.
My recommendation to people that are wanting to try it is just try it on a little strip and monitor how that looks and what you see, the difference in the plants and the soils. And I bet you will see a great difference, and that will help you to move it into a larger area.